Now, my dad absolutely loved watching Mr. Bean while I was growing up. He just found it so funny, and although I see the humor in it, I do find him funny, I'm not gonna lie. I never found him like rolling on the ground funny like my dad did, but then again, what can you do? Mr. Bean is honestly iconic. The British mole-speckled oddball is played by Rowan Atkinson, and essentially, Mr. Bean is a child in a grown man's body. He doesn't really ever speak, and when he does, it's like a low mumbled nothingness. So it's pretty much negligible. What is up, you guys? Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host, Eamon Hassan, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're gonna get into the man himself, the Bean himself. These are the top 10 scary Mr. Bean theories. Starting us off at number 10 is the extraterrestrial tourist. The most popular fan theory about Mr. Bean is that he is in fact an alien, and that it's implied in the opening credits of the show. At the start of the episode, you can see this bright light appear on the ground, and it gets bigger and bigger till Mr. Bean falls on top of it. Fan theories claim that's a comical take on him coming down in a beam from a UFO. The aliens just plopped him onto the earth like he's your problem now, suckers. But the theory is also backed by the fact that he just has such a hard time interacting with members of society because he's just not human. He even wears the same exact clothes every bloody day because he has no idea how humans dress or act. He's just trying to innocently fit in with us. His teddy bear is the one hidden gadget that lets him stay in contact with his other alien brethren, which is why he basically takes it everywhere. I mean, I can see this theory being true, but at the same time, I feel like it's a cop-out theory. Mr. Bean an alien? Come on now. We can do better than that, Reddit. Coming in at number 9 is the abduction. On the flip side of the previous theory, an opposite fan theory proposed by Reddit user Chris2Webby claims that he used to be a completely normal functioning human being. That explains why he has his own apartment, he has money to spend, and he has a girlfriend. Then one unfortunate day, he was abducted by aliens and extensively tested on before they had no use for him and dumped him back on Earth. That again links to him falling from some light in the opening credits, and after the experimenting and testing screwed up his brain, he stopped being able to function normally. He came back socially awkward and inept. I'm still not vibing with this alien theory. It's not doing anything for me. It's just not. At number 8, we have the clone. This theory comes from Arushi Gol, who claims it's very possible that Mr. Bean was a lab-grown clone produced in Russia. Never saw this coming, you guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. According to this theory, he was made along with 300 other clones that were also Mr. Bean. The cloning program was developed during the Cold War, so the Soviet Union could release genetically altered citizens in different capitalist countries around the world. The clones were meant to be highly incompetent and unpredictable because they hoped they'd cause nothing but chaos in the countries they were deployed in. The governments of those countries would be too busy trying to contain these clones, hence they'd be too distracted, giving the Soviet Union an edge if they needed it. Of these 300 clones, 57% of them died drowning in a pool, driving or parking, or just crossing the road. Filling at number 7 slot is the abused child. This theory came from an anonymous person on Quora who claimed that there's an incredibly dark reason as to why Mr. Bean acts like a child. It's not because he has a condition, it's because his life was so painful that he has no choice. Let me explain. Mr. Bean's parents were very poor and they had a lot of kids. He was the youngest, which meant he was often forgotten. He was an odd child on the quieter side, but he had the best childhood. His siblings doted on him all the time and played with him, and his most cherished item was a teddy bear they gave him for their 7th birthday. But things took a turn for the worst a few years later. His dad, in an alcohol-fueled rage, murdered all of his siblings. Mr. Bean was hiding under the bed, and so he was spared, and he thought the only thing he could do was run away. His life was tragic and no one really helped him, and the reason he stays being a child well into adulthood is because that's the last time he was happy. He repressed every other memory of his life because they just weren't good memories. He doesn't want to remember them. Being a child is comforting and safe for him, which is why he just chooses to live in that world. That got me in the feels, I'm not gonna lie. Now at number 6 is Dead or Alive. This fan theory claims that everything we watch Mr. Bean do is us watching him in heaven because he's already dead. Fans think in the movie Mr. Bean's Holiday that, yes, my dad also made me watch, that we're watching his journey to heaven, and in the movie's case, heaven is this beautiful beach that he's trying his level best to get to. The lost guy in the movie is actually his guardian angel trying to accompany him and secretly help him. Fans also brought in the start of the movie when he's in some kind of church and the ticket he won is the ticket to heaven, meaning mans was dead the whole time. We were just sat there laughing at a stupid zombie for all we know, which is just not my vibe. Coming in at number 5 is his childhood. When it comes to theories, you guys already know there was gonna be one pertaining to Mr. Bean's childhood. There's usually always a childhood theory out there for every show, and it's usually the darkest one. This one was shared by Redditor Narrow Escape Chalupa, who claims Mr. Bean had a horrible childhood. His parents were unemployed drug addicts who lived in a small town, and no one in that town even knew that they had a kid. They neglected him all the time in order to get money somehow for their next fix, which explains why he's so self-sufficient in his own quirky way. He was locked in the house his whole life, which also explains why he doesn't have friends, why he doesn't know how to interact with people, and why he doesn't really speak. The only friend he had was a teddy bear, and that's why he still carries it around in adulthood. At number 4 is the act. What if all of this was just an act? All the stupidness and tomfoolery? What if he was just trying to trick us this whole time and we just fell right into the trap? Now, yes, Mr. Bean rarely ever speaks, so we think he's borderline mute, but in the movie, he literally delivers an entire speech. I'm not gonna repeat it for you guys now because it's long as hell, but it's extremely articulate and it's very intelligent. In another episode of the TV show, he takes a quiz and another student asks him if he's finished his revision, and he replies yes, and that he concentrated on trigonometry. The student then replies saying he concentrated on calculus, and then Mr. Bean says the test actually concentrated on calculus the year before, which is a lie. So the man knows how to lie, how to be subtle, he can clearly talk and articulate himself well. So I mean, the man is able and capable, but the theory suggests he just pretends he's not to literally screw with people and watch the world burn. And if that is the case, the man is a sociopath. Filling a number 3 slot is the alleyway. This theory kind of builds on the fact that Mr. Bean used to be a functioning person. The theory claims that Mr. Bean was born on the spectrum, which made him have speech impairment, but he learned how to communicate with sign language. He even used to have a wife and kid who he loved dearly until one night. On a family outing to the movies one night, a group of muggers came and cornered the family. Since Mr. Bean couldn't talk, he started signing at them, which they took offensively. He handed over his wallet, but at this point they had already grabbed his wife and kid. Making even more fun of the gestures he was making, they stabbed him in the leg before stabbing both his wife and kid in the throats. Unable to walk because of his knife wound, all he could do was crawl to his dying family. After that night, he stopped communicating through sign language altogether and never took anything seriously again. Life just became a joke to him. And this one sounds extremely Joker-esque. I don't know why. The Joker and Mr. Bean, more similar than we thought, clearly. Now, number 2 is the origin story part 1. Now, we've explored a lot of origin stories in this video today, but this one may be the darkest one yet. This one claims that when Mr. Bean was born, his parents knew there was something wrong with him and they didn't want to deal with it. They were from a rich, affluent family, and this kid could not be a stain on their reputation, so they admitted him to a mental institution to live out the rest of his life. On his 4th birthday, the nurses gave him his teddy bear and claimed that his parents had left it for him before they disappeared. Mr. Bean was thrilled, but he was also lied to. The nurses thought if he knew the real reason his parents abandoned him, that it would crush him, so they told him that they had just mysteriously disappeared. His life kept going on, and he eventually made friends with one of the older gentlemen in the ward who he thought really cared about him. Wrong. What he wasn't truly aware of was the fact that the man was a convicted pedophile who was sexually abusing him. The man wanted to know what Mr. Bean was afflicted with because he was so easy to manipulate. So he decided to sneak into the psychiatric's office one night to find the boy's file. And finally, at number 1 is the origin story part 2. When he finally read the file, he was filled with guilt and sadness for the boy and decided to tell him when he turned 16. When the time came, the revelation broke Mr. Bean. He grew up his whole life thinking his parents loved him but had just mysteriously disappeared. Not that they thought he was an abomination and wanted nothing to do with him. When he found out, he broke down almost immediately. He got violent and started attacking every single person in the ward. The nurses had to strap him down, but anytime they would release him, he continued the attack. He became so filled with hatred for being lied to, for being taken advantage of, for being disposed of, that they ended up having to put him in a medically induced coma so he wouldn't harm himself or others. And the movies and TV show we see of Mr. Bean are his coma dreams, where nothing can ever hurt him. And that is it for today's video, guys. Wow, I never thought Mr. Bean was as dark as this video made him seem. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. As always, I'm your host, Ayman Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.